Hi, I'm James Mitchell, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's Oracle Outlook. In this video, I'll be doing a Lenormand card reading for the week starting May the 2nd, 2016, so stay tuned. And here we are with the cards on the table, and the deck assisting me for this week's Oracle Outlook reading is the Dondorf Lenormand, and I'm going to take the deck in hand. And as I do with every weekly general reading that I do here, I'm thinking of what do we need to know for the week ahead, with the idea that if we're going to be shown any challenges that we could experience possibly through the week, then also to how we can best move through those challenging experiences. Okay, now I'm going to cut the deck. And I'm going to pull the top 5 cards for the line. I'm doing a line of 5 reading. Okay, so when I do a line of 5 reading, I always start with the center card. The center card for me usually represents the central issue or the focus for the week. So here we have the Sun card. So now the Sun card is the best card in the deck. It usually represents a lot of luck. Its meanings are success, confidence, positive energy, and happiness. So it could be, this could be a very good week for us, and it could be that the theme could be things that we are involved in that are going to give us a boost of confidence, put us on the path of success. It could also be about things becoming clear. I tend to look at this as a clarification card. Things shining a light on things, so I always see this as illumination. So this is a very, very positive card. So the theme here is usually representative of success and confidence. So anything that could make us more confident about ourselves and what we're doing, or that we may actually see some success as a result of the energy that we're putting into. And here's the thing, if we're expecting something to be successful, then we have to put positive energy into that. So I'm seeing that as a possible theme here. So looking at the cards that are around it, it's going to inform us more about what this success or confidence or positive energy or whatever's being clarified could be. So at the far left we have the book. Next to that we have the coffin. Okay, and then we have the house on the other side, and then rounding out the line we have the cross. Okay, so having said that, we have 2 challenging cards in the line. So we have the coffin and we have the cross. These are considered challenging cards. But with the Sun card in the middle, the Sun tends to outshine every card, and it can reduce the challenging effects or the negative aspects of the other cards. So I just wanted to say that as I talk about these cards and what they could mean, keep in mind that the Sun kind of outshines every single card on the table. So having said that, the cards immediately flanking the Sun card are the coffin and the house. So the coffin is a card that can represent something coming to an end. It usually represents endings. For me, it can also represent limitations or restrictions, something that is confining. And I always come with that because I tend to look at the coffin as a box. So with Lenormand is very literal. So it can actually be, you know, a casket. That would be one literal thing. But it could also be some kind of box, you know, some form of a container or a storage, something of that nature. So it could represent limitation, restriction, confinement, storage. It can also represent a need for rest. If you consider the coffin a resting place, then it could be something that is suggesting that we may need to have some rest. So some possibilities here could be, you know, rest at home, because the house represents things having to do with your home life, your personal life. It could also be about a space in which you live with other people, because the idea here is about, you know, people living under one roof. So it could be immediate family. It could be if you have a spouse or partner, anybody that you share a roof with, or, you know, share space with. It could be that. It could also be something having to do if you are a business owner like myself. This card can represent either, you know, a small business or a home business. So some possibilities there. So I'm seeing this as, you know, rest at home. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. It could be a bed in the house. It could also be, you know, finalizing something pertaining to a home business or a small business. There could be, I tend to look at the coffin in that regard as, you know, something being final or something being finalized. So it could be that. It could be something of nature. It could be even like, you know, the idea here, if you're getting rest, it could be, you know, somebody who's ill. The tree is not here, which is a health-related card, but it could be an illness, you know, at home. So, something of that nature. So I'm going to go with the idea here, like there could be something having to do with, okay, so there could be a situation where there is a sense of being either limited or restricted, going with the idea of limitation and restriction to the house, like somebody's being confined to the house or housebound. Like there's some situation that happens where a person either needs to stay home. It could be a result of illness. You know, they need to stay home, or that they are kind of shut in. Sometimes for me, the coffin can be about being closed off or being shut in. And so I don't know this for sure, but it could be like somebody has like agoraphobia, almost like they have a thing about, you know, leaving the house. So it could be like for some reason someone could be confined to the house or housebound. It could be somebody even needing to get bed rest at home, you know, something of that nature. But I'm seeing that as a possibility with the coffin and the house. So now going outside of that to the other cards, we have book on one end and we have the cross on the other end. So book for me can represent an actual book, going with the idea of something being literal. It can also be a course of study, a project. Could also be learning or teaching. For me personally, the book represents a deck of cards, and so it plays on the idea of being a reader. So that's one possibility for me. So there could be something having to do with my reading business, especially with house being in the line. I do have a home business and I am self-employed. I work from home. So there could be something for me personally about, you know, my business here with that. So that's the one side. So the other thing about the book, it can represent something that's secret or not open to the public because the book on the card is closed. So it could be a secret or a mystery or something that's not available or accessible to the general public or, you know, more than one person. It's about somebody keeping something private or to themselves, some information or knowledge. On the other side here, we have the cross. And so the cross typically can represent like a burden, a difficulty. I tend to look at it as more religion and spirituality. So it can have those kinds of aspects to it. It can represent whatever the situation being shown for us, that whenever the cross shows up, it's a need to have faith. So I always say it can represent faith itself or the need to have faith. So again, it could represent difficulties, it could represent a burden, could represent responsibility, could also represent things like faith, religion, spirituality. The cross can also be something that's critical or necessary. So looking at the pair, it could be, you know, either a religious or spiritual book, you know, or a teaching about spirituality or religion. So it could be like religious studies. It could also be in terms of what I do as a reader. There are times where I talk about spiritual ideas and spiritual concepts. So even with that, it could be a reading about spirituality, you know, or in terms of my business, it could be urging me to have faith in my home business, but I'm jumping. So that just jumped out at me in the moment, so I wanted to touch on that. So it could also be a spiritual religious text, so like the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, things of that nature. So it could be just anything having to do with that. Now, it could also be, if it's not going to be any of those, it could be that there is some form of information, a secret or a mystery, that leads to difficulty, or that, somebody is burdened, going with the cross, by keeping a secret with the book. They may want to share the information, but for some reason, they also have maybe a fear of what the revelation of that information would do. So there could be, like, if they reveal it, then the cross could be like, they know in the end that they may be sorry for it, because this card can be about sorrow and grief. So it could be like they understand that they're going to be sorry for that, or that, revealing that information will lead to suffering of some kind. So, but I'm going to see, like, if it's not going to be about the religious or the spiritual aspect, it could be like somebody is burdened by having to keep some information to themselves, like keep a secret or a mystery, and it's like it's causing them some concern. So those are some possibilities there. So now we could look at the two cards coming before the sun, and we have book and we have coffin. So it could be a course or a project or some form of study is coming to an end, or is being completed. Could be like if somebody's working on a book project, going with the idea that this is very literal, that a book project is coming to its end, it's being finalized, it's in that final stage of that. It could also be somebody is either reading a book or writing a book on illness, or how they got through. If we go with the idea that the sun is success and confidence, how the person became confident or achieved some success after going through some form of limitation, and so now they're sharing their story about that. So, but I'm seeing this as like a book project or something having to do with education or learning or teaching coming to an end or being finalized. So it could even be, going with the idea here with the first three cards, it could be a course that helps people work through their limitations and become successful. So I'm seeing that. Or if you go with the idea that maybe the coffin is a card that represents illness, one of the chief illnesses I see with the coffin is like headaches. And so it's about how to overcome the limitation of headaches on a daily basis, because then the sun card would be, having to do with like daytime, daily, things of that nature. So it could be like how to work through that, or even how to overcome limitations and restrictions on a daily basis. It could be like, if we're going to go with that, then it might be, and this just jumped out at me here, so I'm just going to throw it here with the cross here at the end. Then it could be like a devotional, going with the idea of a spiritual or religious text. Could be like, how you have those daily devotionals where you open it up and there may be a passage or some form of inspiration that helps you get through daily living. If we go now, if you even throw the house in there, daily living, like, the day-to-day things about your personal life, your home life, things of that nature, and how you can work through those. So I'm seeing that. This is just jumping out at me in the moment. So those are some possibilities there, and I raised all the cards. I'm going to bring them back down a little bit. So I'm seeing that. So it could be like if somebody's working on a book project, it could be like completing that or bringing that to a close or finalizing that. So I'm seeing that. And now the other thing, this just jumped out at me. So now as a card reader, because I mentioned the book being a deck of cards, then the coffin is quite literal. Remember I said a box. So it could be storage for a deck of cards or lots of decks of cards. So it could be like if somebody's watching this video and they are an actual card reader, then it could be one of the things that they may be wanting to do this week would be creating storage for their decks, especially if they're like me and they have lots of decks. So that's just another possibility. So on the other side here we have the house and we have the cross, and so this could be a religious home or a spiritual home, going with that. It could be also too about a house of faith, and all those could be things like, spiritual, religious places, houses of worship, those kinds of ideas. So there could be that theme, that energy. It could also be, somebody's having a crisis of faith, pertaining to their personal life, their home life, that kind of energy. It could also be somebody has lots of responsibilities at home and having to work through that and wanting to, become more successful and more confident about these difficulties. It could be saying too that the idea here is about faith, or having faith is going to be the thing that's going to help you move through whatever the limitations or restrictions are that you're having around the house. So I'm seeing that as energy with that. And so now the final thing that I like to do with the line is try to come up with a sense of meaning, reading it from left to right. And I kind of touched on this before, so I'm going to go with the idea that it could be there is a book. So it could be, if you're not actually working on a book, it could be a book that you pick up that helps you work through any limitations or restrictions, or that kind of limits, or that is either limiting or restricting your sense of success or confidence with your everyday living. And it may have a spiritual or religious kind of slant to it, or it's something that's going to bolster your sense of faith. It's like helping you deal with everyday living to be more confident, more successful, and helping you overcome any difficulties, things of that nature. But I'm seeing it more of a spiritual slant to that. So that was how I would read the line. It's a book that helps you overcome any limitations or restrictions successfully, having to do with your daily living, and maybe either restore a sense of faith or helping you deal with crises of faith. So I would read that as the line. So the next thing we can do is we can shift to the playing cards to see how they would offer us additional meaning to what I've already said. So now we're going to take a look at the playing cards to see what additional information that the playing cards can offer us. So for the line, we have, with the book, we have the 10 of diamonds, the coffin is the 9 of diamonds, the sun is the ace of diamonds, the house is the king of hearts, and the cross is the 6 of clubs. So the first thing that jumps out at me with the playing cards is that the first 3 are from the suit of diamonds. So diamonds for me can represent things of a material nature. So I always tend to look at it as material resources. So it could be about physical well-being, especially with what I said about the coffin being about possible illness and the need to get rest as a result of that. So it could be about the physical body. It could also be about making money, and so that would make sense with the house being a home business or a small business, because that would be somebody's livelihood, somebody's income revenue stream. So I'm seeing that. So those are the possibilities. So it could be, what are we needing to do in terms of maybe our physical well-being, or what it is that we're doing to create money or a sense of abundance in our lives, and what resources are available at our disposal for those things. So that's the first thing that jumps out at me. So what I like to do is I like to look at the dynamics, and so there's a couple of ways I approach that. The most common way that I usually do in these videos is that I look at the playing cards that are on each side, going with the idea that the sun is the central issue or the focus. So the first 2 cards are going to tell us something about one side of the issue per se, and then the other 2 cards are going to tell us about the other side of the issue per se. So here we have the 10 of diamonds and the 9 of diamonds. So what I do is I take the numbers, add them together. So 10 and 9 is 19. So the 19th card in the deck is the Tower. And so the Tower is a card that can represent isolation. If you go with the idea of like being in an ivory tower, so for me it represents like isolation, separation, a time of withdrawal, a time of being by ourselves. And that would make sense if I was going with the idea of somebody being confined at home, so that would create a sense of isolation or separation. Now the other thing about the Tower is that it represents a company, a corporation, something of a large scale. So it's a large scale company, a large scale corporation. So it could also represent self-employment, going with the idea that the house in the line represents a home business or a small business. So it could be self-employment, and with that it could be somebody who is not only self-employed but they do freelance work. So I'm seeing that kind of energy with that. Now the other thing about the tower, it can also be about something being made official. So going with the idea here that the sun, the focus is on something being becoming clear or clarified, then this would be something being made official. So it could be a rule, a regulation, a policy, something of that nature that creates a sense of success. So I'm seeing that. So that's one side of the issue. So now the other thing we can do is jump to the other side here. And the king is 13 for me. So 13 and 6 is, 19. So we have, the issue is the same on each side. So that's very interesting when the same card repeats, because it's reinforcing that. So it could be that there is going to be a need for isolation, a need for withdrawal. So somebody could work on becoming more clear on what it is that they want to do with their business per se. It could also be too, the tower is a tall building, if you go with the idea of it being literal. So it's a literal building that has many floors to it or is high up. So from a spiritual standpoint, if we go with the idea here on this side that the cross is something having to do with faith and having to do with religion or spirituality, then this could be an elevation of consciousness. So, as like a rise in your thinking, because symbolically, tall buildings represent, like each floor represents a level up. So it could be somebody's moving up in their way of thinking, in their consciousness. And that's like a very spiritual idea. And so that may help them look at life in a different way, in a better way. It could be clearing something up in the way that they've been living life on a daily basis, or that if they're having a crisis of faith, raising their consciousness or elevating their consciousness gets them to look at it in a way in which they get to overcome that sense of limitation or restriction, going with the idea of here, the coffin and the sun. So it's very interesting that the card is showing up on each side of the dynamics. And so going with that, I'm going to try something different with that. I'm going to put this card here for a moment. And then what we can do in this particular case, then we could do what's called mirroring the cards. So if I take the 10 and then the 6 of clubs, add them together, we have 16. So another thing we can consider is that another possible dynamic would be the stars. That's the 16th card in the deck. And so then the stars is a card of inspiration. So again, keeping with the idea here that whatever this book is, or whatever this course or this project is, it has some element of being inspirational to people. So because this card is about inspiration, it can also be about guidance or direction. So it could be about something that not only inspires people, but it could be something that offers guidance and direction. Now, a couple of things here with the stars. It could be either the book or the project is by a life coach, because I tend to look at stars as life coaching. It could also be by somebody who is a big-time guru in his or her industry, and that would keep with the idea of like the teacher or learnings, like a guru who has been teaching people, and that's what they're known for. Then it can also be something of a metaphysical nature, and that would put a slant on the religion aspect here with the cross, spiritual aspect. It could be something that's considered maybe New Age or metaphysical, so it may not be a traditional religious or spiritual material. It could be something more New Age or more metaphysical in nature. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. But the idea here would be inspirational and maybe clearing something up, and that would reinforce the idea here with the sun being clarity. So I'm seeing that as, being reinforced, but something that would offer a sense of inspiration, direction, and guidance. So I'm going to put that here. And then on this side, if we look at mirroring the inner cards, we have the 9 of diamonds and 13 with the king, and so 9 and 13 is 22. So the 22nd card in the deck is the crossroads. I'm going to put that here. So the crossroads represents being at a place in life where you are faced with a choice, options, or alternatives. So I always look at that, and it would be having more than one option on the table. So it could be like whatever this project is, whatever this material is, it could be the idea here that it's going to provide you with a sense of options, give you alternatives, help maybe with the idea of like an elevation in consciousness, getting you to look at things differently, gives you a couple of ways of doing that. It could also be like going with the idea that stars was about direction. Then this card is the same thing too, because it could be about a path. So it could be, you know, maybe the material is about looking at your spiritual path, your religious path. Or it could be like, you know, you have been on a particular path, and then this card is coming up because it's time to make a departure from that path. Like you're moving in a new direction. It could also be about how we're approaching things. So it could be like whatever this material is, it may be asking you to change your approach. So that could be more of like adopting a maybe a more spiritual or religious approach to life and its circumstances, and helping you overcome the challenges of daily living. So I'm seeing that. So crossroads is about a direction, it's about an approach, it's about a departure, it's about offering you choices, alternatives, and options. You know, it's designed that to help you choose the best course of action. So I'm seeing that as the energy of the crossroads. So the final thing that we can do with the cards on the table is that we can add them all the way across. So for the book, we have 10 with 10 of diamonds. Then we have 9. Ace is 1. King is 13. And 6 gives us a total of 39. There are 36 cards in the deck. So anytime I get a number over 36, I add the digits together. So 3 and 9 is 12. So the 12th card in the deck is the birds. So I'll put that right here in the middle. So the birds can typically represent communication and conversation. So I'm seeing that. So it could be like the book may be like an interview format. It could be like a conversation between two individuals. So, and the thing that jumps into my mind is like the book series Conversations with God, where it was Neil Donald Walsh, who was the author, having a conversation with God. So that was the gist of all the books. And so it could be like a dialogue like that, you know, going back and forth, and it's in a book format, and you learn as a result of reading the conversation or the communication or the dialogue between the two people in the book, or the two beings in the book, you know, the interviewee and the interviewer kind of energy. So it could also be too like the book inspires you to kind of look at the way you are having a conversation with yourself. You know, what's your self-talk? And it's getting you to kind of be aware more about the conversation that you're having with yourself in your mind. If you go with the idea that the tower represents, you know, separation, isolation. So if you're by yourself, it's about like looking at the ways that you are talking about yourself, talking about your life experiences. But sometimes, my belief anyway, is that our words are very powerful things. And so that the thoughts that we're thinking and the words that we're speaking play directly into the experiences that we have. So I'm seeing that as it could be an opportunity for you to look at your self-talk this week. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. But I'm going with the idea like the book or the material, learning material, is about communication and looking at the ways in which we talk. Is the way that we're talking serving us and supporting us, or is it hindering us and tripping us up, going back to the coffin? So that kind of energy. So I'm seeing that as a possibility with the birds. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the last feature that I use when I do a Lenormand reading. So the first we've touched on in the first segment, which was looking at the central image and creating keywords or using keywords based on that image. Then we just finished looking at the playing cards and possibilities for the dynamics that are at play. And so now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take all the numbers, the numerical values of the cards, and come up with what I call the essence card or the final advice card. And so now turning our attention to the numbers on the cards, we have 26 for the book, 8 for the coffin, 31 for the sun, 4 for the house, and 36 for the cross. And that gives us a total of 105. And so again, that is over 36, way over 36. So we're going to add the digits. So 1 plus 0 is 1, and then 1 plus 5 is 6. So the sixth card in the deck is the clouds. And so now the clouds, as the final advice card or the essence card, says it's no accident, the things that I've been saying. So if the theme with the sun here, keeping with the idea of the focus, if the theme or the focus is on success and confidence, then the clouds is an understandable card to show up in the line or as the essence, because this card represents confusion, doubt, uncertainty, being in a space in which you're unsure. And so what I had said about the birds showing up was the idea here about self-talk, the conversation that you're having in your head. And then the clouds is perfect to go as a follow-up to that, because this card can represent, since it's the atmosphere, the energy, or the element of air, it represents the mind. And so the idea here is that confusion takes place in the mind. When we're not sure, when we're uncertain, when we're confused, that's a lot of mental energy. So it makes sense that the clouds is following that. So it's about, like, how can we move from a space of being confused, unclear, uncertain, to being clear and being confident. So the idea here is that, like, if it's a confidence issue, then the clouds is about doubt. And if it's about something that needs to be cleared up, it's about confusion and uncertainty. So whatever this material is that's coming our way, this resource, because now remember, the majority of the cards were diamonds, so it's about having a resource. Whatever this resource is, it's designed to help us move from being unsure and uncertain and from a place of doubt to becoming more clear, more confident, and moving from a place of being in a fog or being in a haze or, even depression, going with the idea here that the coffin and the clouds together as a combination can represent depression. Then this is about getting that cleared up, So the idea here is about, yes, you could be in that space where you're unsure, you're uncertain, you have doubt. But the clouds always says too that it's a temporary thing, because the clouds move through the sky. Clouds don't just stay in one area, they tend to move on. So it could be like just a reminder, like, it's not always going to be this way. The sun will come back out. And so it's just saying, like, this too shall pass, going with the idea here with the cross and the book being, religious text or spiritual text or sacred text. There is a passage in Christian scripture that says, this too shall pass. So whatever it is that you're experiencing, maybe the mantra for you this week, you just need to understand, yes, it may be a stormy time. It may be a period where you're feeling like you are troubled, that you are uncertain, that things are not clear. But the mantra for you this week could be just understanding, going with mantra being something that you say to yourself again and again, going with the birds repeatedly, is that this too shall pass. You may not know how, and maybe needing to let go of the how that's involved with that. Like, you may not see how that's going to happen, but maybe your role in that's just to let go of the how and just to trust and have faith that it will pass. So I'm seeing that as this. So we're moving through a space of going from uncertainty, confusion, doubt, to becoming more confident, things are clearing up, and as a result of that, we achieve some level of success. And success is relative, so you have to, going with the idea here about the house and, people living under the same roof being relatives, success is relative, so you have to ask yourself, what does success mean to me? Because it's not going to mean the same thing to everybody. So you have to think, in the world that you live in your own personal daily experience with life, what does success mean to you? Because this could be what you're moving towards this week. So this has been the Oracle Outlook using the Lenormand. I am James Himm Mitchell. I am signing off, but before I sign off, I want to thank you for sharing this space here with me, and I look forward to sharing this space here with you again in our next Oracle Outlook video together. And until then, I'm wishing you a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and until we get together again, take care.